What we do here is go back.
What else caught your eye this weekend? We got, I think all the big teams practically won. Chelsea, City, Arsenal, Spurs. Take your pick. What's next?
Let's go Spurs.
Spurs 4-1?
4-1. They really kind of struggled to get out of the gate.
Bournemouth. Yeah, they could have been down 2-0 in the opening 5 minutes.
Very early on.
When you look at it. Junior Stanilas.
When I was watching it live, I turned it on and it was like 8 minutes in and they were already down. I was like, oh, okay, this is going to make for an interesting watch. And then it really went their way the rest of the way, to be quite honest. But
yeah, they should have been down 2-0. I don't know if it was just fatigue from the midweek game, and obviously the way they lost that tie is definitely going to affect you. What I took from this game was the fact, and it proves to my point, besides the discussion or the evidence that Serge Aurier and Danny Rose are now second choice fullbacks in that Spurs side because they couldn't hit a cross to save their life. There's a difference between delivering a cross and having a defender clear it and just completely miss hitting the cross on a consistent basis.
what do you mean? He was going back post.
Oh, he was going to the next town every single time. And it's funny because it ended up being Aurier's cross that eventually found Ali to equalize. But besides the point, we realized that Trippier and Davies are their first choice fullbacks, and that's an indictment on Rose and Aurier. But what we also saw from this is, and the point that I've been making, is that the system that Pochettino has put in for Spurs has ensured that although it's great having Harry Kane, when he's gone, they could still win without him. They could, and they did it last season when he was out for 2 months. They have a system in place where they could get the job done and they could beat inferior sides. I can't recall if they were to go again and play against City, if they'd be able to do without Kane, which I think they'd still be able to compete because of who they have and the roles that they could play, where you can have Son, who has the pace, they could play him and have him try to break him behind the Spurs, in the City back line, or they could play the center forward in Llorente and have him play off of Ali and have Ali break in behind. So they have options. And it was great that they won 4-1 because it reassured to me that they could win games without Harry Kane. And that's so pivotal when you lose your most influential player, arguably besides possibly Eriksen, in the final third, that you could still go out there and win games where other teams may struggle in that regard. You look at Chelsea, for instance. We haven't seen really United too. Lukaku, they've tried to put in pieces there. It hasn't really worked out. Usually when you use your top center forward or a player that scores as many goals as Harry Kane does, you expect regression. But you don't really get that from Spurs. And I thought that was really key. And I think that's key for them to keep going forward, that they have so many options, so much flexibility in that attacking zone that they're able to do that.
Well, I think Son predominantly has taken his chance and he's ran with it because we've seen Pochettino go to Lamela lately. So I feel like that's lit a fire under him to need to come out and give good results, and we've seen nothing but good results from Son lately. I thought Ali was very good.
Yeah.
I think he often...
After they settled, he was very good.
Yes. Maybe I feel like often he gets lost because of what Kane does and the end product that Kane gives you. But I think a lot of what Kane does is based off the movement of Ali, and he's shown that he can get a goal when needed. I think this is his third season. He's had 10-plus goals every season.
Which is huge.
So, and to get that kind of production consistently out of a young player is not easy to do. Look at all the other sides. There's not very many young players who continue to be consistently elevating their game year after year. And it was a good performance from him. And I think Vertonghen and Sanchez were okay. Sanchez, he didn't have the greatest of games. He was exposed a couple times.
Yeah. I've made this case to you that and he's young, so I'm not going to hit him hard because I don't think he deserves that. But for as great as the Spurs side is defensively, they're prone to make an error or two per game. It's whether you pounce on it or not. And like you said, it wasn't their best game in that regard.
Even more so, I think, without Dyer being there
Yeah.
and Wanyama being there, because Wanyama, you don't see him drop into the center back position if you need be, but that's something Dyer will do. If Sanchez gets out of position, he knows that Dyer is there to back him up. Whereas with Wanyama, you don't get that so much.
Which is crazy because Wanyama was like one of their standout players last season, and I don't think he's really recovered fully from that injury that he sustained. He may not be back to himself until next season after, full, proper preseason training, and maybe then he could provide some competition for Dyer. But yeah, that's definitely one aspect to look at it. The one question that I could pose to you, and I think it's very hot take-ish, and I don't think we can actually give a definitive answer yet, but just think about it for a second. I know Harry Kane has all the talent, and he's shown that he is a very, very good all-round center forward. But perhaps, maybe, he could be a system striker?
Well, I guess we would have to see him go elsewhere.
Yeah.
Or under another manager.
Yeah.
Because is it possible that Pochettino leaves this year? If somebody like PSG comes knocking on the door, do you think he abandons this project he has going on? Or is the allure of being in the Premier League much higher than going to like a PSG? Because I've read reports that they're lining up a bid.
He's already coached in Spain. It'd be interesting to see if a team like Real Madrid came knocking and how that would appeal to him. I've always felt that him and Kane will eventually go, specifically Kane. I don't know if Ali will go. I don't know. Eriksen may go eventually. But I feel like that if they were to go, it would take the whole project to just go to the shits.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like Kane and Pochettino are inevitable. But when we look at Kane and Pochettino, I feel like they're going to wait until the stadium is built before they leave. So I still think we have one more year with them. But it's tough. It's tough because the way they identify players, they're not going out and they do it the right way. They don't go out and splash money here and there. They identify certain players that they want and they go out and get them. But at the same time, it's tough to compete. And they're doing a very good job. Like, no one could slander Spurs or discredit them for what they're doing because they're doing it the right way. And just sometimes in this age that we live in right now and where the sport is going, money trumps all sometimes, most of the time. It can't always be building it the right way. And they're seeing that issue. I felt that the one season, and this was their first season really competing, the Leicester season, if there was any time to win, it was that season. But given what was happening, and it was their first real time in that environment where, hey, we could actually compete for the title, they get a pass. Last season was a chance to win, but Chelsea went on that historic run where they won like 12 games in a row, league games and whatnot. They didn't play Champions League, so that benefited Chelsea. City this season it's a historic season as well. But then there's still teams ahead of them, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other thing.
You feel like they've almost been, the project is like 2 years too late. Whereas if this project was 2 years prior, you feel like they could have very well.
When the Premier League was in a very poor state, crazy that people think that it is now compared to what we saw over the past 3 seasons ago when it was really bad. Yeah. And I feel it's just like the wrong timing because they've done everything right. What else could you ask for them to do, right? They've used their money wisely. They have a coach that's integrated youth like the masses want. They've developed homegrown players, which is what the masses want. They don't spend a lot of money, like I said. And they have a system in place. Everyone knows their roles. They play it to a T. They play good football. It ticks every box that the English media critiques in a manager or critiques in a team. They're like the ideal team. But
I feel like at some point you can't complain about not winning anything if you're not willing to put something into it.
Yeah.
Like, you have to give Pochettino, you got to throw him a bone at some point here.
Yeah. But here's my other thing to that, is that what player do you bring into that team that doesn't disrupt what the balance that they've set. What do you add? What do you improve? Because you got the forward. You have a playmaker. So do you improve the playmaker? Defensively, Spurs, if not, they're one of the best defensive teams on a yearly basis. If you look at it, they're defensively one of the best teams on a yearly basis. Well, this season, United and City have been better than them, right? So, but it's only by a margin of goals, and City have just scored way more than everyone else. So that's a big thing, right?
It's almost a catch-22 as who do you drop? Like, who are you going to... Dembele's performed very good lately, and he does a lot of work that some players can't do. Physically, he's very good. His stamina is extremely good. He's very good at linking the play from back to front, and he can dribble past 3 or 4 players. So,
but they can improve in that area.
But for who? You know who? Like somebody that comes out top of my mind that I could see maybe potentially working out here, and somebody that I think United could go for, Jorginho from Napoli. I think he's on the verge of like a bigger move.
I heard United are after him, and I heard City are after him.
Okay, that must be where it comes from then, because he's extremely good on the ball, and I think he's elevated past. Not to say that Napoli aren't a top side, but I feel like he's done what he's had to do there. Yeah. Even Alan as well.
Yeah,
I feel like his workhorse, his not afraid to get stuck in. Yeah. He's good on the ball as well. Yeah. That I don't think he gets a ton of credit for.
I think those two are the better midfielders, and I rate them highly. I rate them over Hamsik, but that's for we'll get to Napoli
100%. But I feel like one of them could potentially work in this midfield.
Well, that's going to cost you a lot of money.
But you have to put money into this project.
But they can't compete with the other sides. In terms of wages, that's the other problem. Their wage structure, they can't compete with a City or United who could throw $250K a week at Jorginho with her $250K at Alan.
Well, then they got to be content with finishing in the top 3. It's one or the other. You can't complain about something and then expect to have a fully homegrown team that is going to just beat everybody. That's not going to happen. You have to bring sources from the outside. Any team that we've ever seen accomplish, look at all the resources that City have brought in. Everybody outsources their players from somewhere. You need to, because you're not going to have everything in-house.
And it's somewhat what they suffer. Napoli suffered the same issue, right? In terms of what Juventus can offer and what Napoli can offer. But, like, look, Harry Kane makes $120K a week, 120K pounds.
That's not very much.
Yeah.
For somebody who does what he does on a week-in, week-out basis.
That's the problem. And eventually they're going to look for pay raises. They enjoy playing with each other, the team itself. But eventually...
that only goes so far.
Yeah.
They are humans, right?
Look at last season. Spurs scored the most goals in the league, had the best defense. I'm going to go back to the year before that. Let's see where they finished then. But
so the product is there. It's just missing the end result, really.
Yeah.
They're missing that something to unlock them in bigger games, I feel like. Somebody to turn the game on their head in an instant, right?
The season before, everyone kind of just conceded the same amount of goals. But United, Arsenal, Leicester, and Spurs. Spurs had the best defense in terms of goals allowed with United and scored 20 more goals than United.
So it's like you can't really tinker with that as well.
Exactly.
So it's a fine line. It's a balance that we see a lot of teams not get right, where you bring in players from the outside and it doesn't mesh.
Exactly.
Everything looks good on paper, but when it gets down to on-the-field product, it doesn't always pan out the same way.
And that's why they identify players specifically to fit those roles. But that's the issue that they have over at Spurs, and that's a question that I raised to Kane, and we won't really know until he leaves.
But the clock's ticking on him, though, because he's not going to stick around forever. So it's either you make a move now where you have the coach, you have the system, and you have a very good base of players, and you attempt to win something, or you just chalk it up to, hey, it was a good 3-4 year run, something to look back on. Yeah. We hope we can build that again one day, because you don't come across a Harry Kane every day.
Yeah. And it'll happen soon. And Daniel Levy doesn't sell for cheap, so they'll be getting a lot of money back to invest regardless. So,
but then that puts you back at square one.
Well, what do you want them to do? I don't think they're going to sell everyone at once, but
But even if you, so you're saying if you say Kane, if they sell Kane, you'd still see them compete. I think that's a tough ask.
On what stat in the Champions League? No.
No, I honestly don't. I think the fact that
In the league, they could still be a top 4 team.
I think if they get to the quarterfinals of Champions League every year, that's already
I think they could be a top 4 team in the league.
without Harry Kane.
And then depending on who they bring in, we'll
I think
see.
that's a big if.
It also depends on what's going on around them, right? Because the situation at Arsenal doesn't look like it's going to get better anytime soon. And the situation at Chelsea is very inconsistent in terms of what they're doing. It's unstable. New manager, new players, we don't know what's going to happen there. So let's say it were to happen next year, I would still give them that advantage. The players know their roles. They would have to identify a striker that he doesn't have to score as many goals as Kane, but a player that could come in and play that role where he can make the runs into the channels, where he can hold the ball up with his back to goal, where he could be that poacher as well, right? Is that tough to find? Perhaps, but they're going to have to do it.
Well, especially if you're working with a limited budget.
Yeah.
Well, you're only going to...
Well, whatever, you have to look at it this way. Whatever they're going to get for Kane is going to be over 50.
I think they get a lot more than that for him.
But I'm just bare
Yeah.
minimum over
Just
50 unless, and Daniel Levy is not stupid enough to let his contract go down to the final year before letting him go. So he's going to get top dollar for him. So you use that money, you buy a player that isn't that renowned, because I don't think they're going to get a world beater, and to use the rest of the money and put that into the wages, then kind of adds itself up.
Let's say he goes to Madrid. Would you take Bale in return? This is very hypothetical. I know some wild story came out at the beginning of the year or during the winter transfers that we talked about that there was a potential.
Do I see that happening ever? No, but if it were to happen, yeah, I would.
Do you think Bale fits this style?
He can, but not as the center forward.
Not as the
He'd have
nine.
to play he'd have to play a free role. Well, he could play the role that Son was playing and make it work, right? And he could do it in England.
Yeah.
In terms of what is out there right now, in terms of team defending and the amount of mistakes made on a weekly basis, it could work. His age, and he would have to take a pay cut, and I think he'd possibly be willing to take a pay cut if he went there, just because of the fan base and he has history there. I don't think he'd be demanding high wages. And he'd have to understand what he's coming back into, right? But that's for another debate. They have time to really search for what they're looking for, but
I just feel like it's a fine line between tinkering with something and breaking it, or tinkering with it and making it better.
Yeah. Well, like I said, if you lose Kane, obviously you bring in someone else, it's not going to be better right away. But I think they'll be able to sustain where they're at if they keep the core. If they could keep the Eriksen, if they could keep the Sons, which I think they can. I think they really can keep Eriksen's Son, and I really think they could keep Ali, unless he elevates his game to a whole different level in the next few years. I think they could keep them.
I don't see Ali going anywhere else, to be quite honest, because is he going to go to another team in the Premier League? I don't see that.
The only teams that would come poaching is United or City.
But do you think him personally would make that jump?
Like I said, he'd have to make a big jump himself, right? In terms of his performances.
But I mean, personality-wise, I don't know. I feel like he's pretty happy at Spurs.
Yeah, but that could change.
Fair enough.
Money talks.
But I don't see him being the type of player to go play in a top other European side. I don't see him going to Spain and dominating. I don't see him going to Ali, yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, right? Like, if he made a big move, unless he makes a significant jump, I can't see him going anywhere unless he goes to a top English side.
Fair enough. I can't picture him somewhere else other than Spurs.
I could see him being a Mourinho player. Mourinho's there for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't picture it.
He could play a role. Told you he's on. He's under review for his light skin status, so he has that Mourinho-esque, hey, you're a great player if you're with us, but if you're not with us, then we hate you type of mentality. He scores goals, late runs into the box. he ticks all the boxes, right? So I could see him going to a top side. I can't see him playing for Pep, so it would have to be Mourinho. Eriksen, I think if Eriksen were to go, he could go to a foreign side. I would see him go to like Serie A, like a Juventus.
Eriksen?
Yeah. I couldn't see him going to like a Madrid, or I couldn't see him going to like a Barca. It just doesn't fit.
Taking over Modric's spot that he's leaving behind?
He would have to really elevate his game, because when Luka Modric left, he was the best. He was hands down the best midfielder in England, and it just kind of went unnoticed. But he would have to elevate a bit higher for him to make that step. So I can't see him really going anywhere else, right? So, but we'll see.
It'll be an interesting offseason for them.
Yeah,
just to see what moves they make.
I don't think it happens this year, where Pochettino or Kane go. I think they stay one more season, and I don't know where. I don't think Pochettino would get the Madrid job with like Conte available. Who knows if Mourinho's going to be available? If no one else is available and they're really looking to get rid of Zidane, let's say they get knocked out in the next round, Madrid, and Pochettino's the only one available, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they come at him and then he's. What else are you going to say? But
for me, I see Pochettino at PSG. I could see that, because there's a lot of young players there, and he's very good at grooming young talent to play certain positions.
That's true.
I feel like he can take that team to a next level that's needed, and then as well he would have the funds,
resources,
to get players that he would need.
That'd be interesting.
But for them as a whole, the next little while is going to be interesting to see how they add and how they take away, who leaves, who comes, who goes. All that stuff.